Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into the world of Fyodor Dostoevsky today.
Oh, Dostoevsky.
I know, right? This guy's a giant.
He is.
And I think to kick us off, we have to talk about his most famous quote.
Okay.
You know the one, "Beauty will save the world"?
Yes.
It sounds so simple,
Right.
but it comes from a man who experienced, seriously intense suffering.
Yeah, there's that real tension there.
So how did he get there? How can someone go through so much darkness
Exactly.
and come out believing in beauty?
Well, to understand that, we really need to dig into his life.
Okay, let's do it.
It's,
Where should we start?
I think going back to his childhood is essential. I mean, talk about a rough start.
I was reading about that. When he was just 9 years old,
Yeah,
one of his friends was murdered,
tragic.
brutally murdered, and Dostoevsky apparently took it so hard.
He did.
To imagine that happening at such a young age,
It's unimaginable.
it makes you wonder how anyone could come out of that with any sense of hope.
Well, one of his acquaintances actually said that even as a kid, Dostoevsky thought that, taking someone's life.
Oh, wow.
It's a terrible sin, obviously, but you know what he considered even worse? Taking away their faith in the beauty of life.
That's interesting.
It's even then, he understood beauty went beyond just the surface.
Yeah, there was a deeper meaning there.
Absolutely.
So fast forward a bit, he loses his mother to tuberculosis at 15,
Oh, gosh.
and then his dad dies under mysterious circumstances
Right.
just 2 years later. Some people think that's when the epilepsy started.
That timing is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's crucial to remember that for Dostoevsky, epilepsy wasn't just a medical thing.
I can imagine.
It was this huge spiritual and existential experience,
It definitely shaped his writing.
It did. The seizures, the auras, that feeling of losing control.
Wow.
All that really fueled his fascination with how we perceive reality.
So how did this all play out in his early work? I know his first novel, Poor Folk, was well received.
It was a success, yeah, but some critics were pretty harsh on him.
Yeah, I read about that.
It seems like that, coupled with his growing disillusionment with society,
Yeah.
kind of pushed him down a pretty radical path.
In what way?
Well, he started getting involved with this secret group of, utopian socialists.
Oh, wow.
Which, unfortunately for him, led to his arrest in 1849.
That was a huge turning point, right? I mean, he was sentenced to death.
Yeah, by firing squad.
They even went through this whole mock execution thing.
Oh, brutal.
It's hard to fathom the psychological impact of that.
Later on, Dostoevsky actually described it as, living hell, a complete descent into nothingness.
Yeah.
He said the scariest part wasn't even the fear of dying.
Well, what was it then?
It was that sudden realization that he might actually live.
Oh my gosh.
It was like a cruel mind game designed to just crush the prisoners.
It's incredible he survived that mentally.
It really is.
And one of the other prisoners
Yeah.
didn't survive.
Unfortunately not. He was driven to madness.
So Dostoevsky gets this pardon at the last minute.
Yeah, total power play by the Tsar,
Yeah.
showing mercy.
And then he's sent to Siberia for 4 years of hard labor.
Right, but even after all that, he writes to his brother and says, "I haven't lost heart. Remember that hope has not abandoned me. After all, I was at death's door today. I lived with that thought for 3/4 of an hour. I faced the last moment, and now I am alive again."
There's that resilience.
It's amazing, right?
It's almost like this experience fueled his writing.
It definitely did. His style changed drastically after Siberia.
How so?
It became so much rawer, visceral. You can feel the weight of the suffering he witnessed.
It's like he went through a fire and came out transformed.
A crucible, exactly.
And it's around this time, in 1869, that he writes, "Beauty will save the world." Okay, so let's unpack that quote.
Yes.
Beauty will save the world.
It's powerful, isn't it?
On the surface, it sounds almost naive coming from Dostoevsky,
Right.
this man who saw the depths of human cruelty.
Right, exactly. Even Alexander Solzhenitsyn,
Oh, wow, another giant.
yeah, the author of the Gulag Archipelago.
So someone who knew a thing or two about suffering?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He initially questioned how beauty could possibly stand up to the horrors of the world.
It's like, how can something so seemingly delicate
Right.
have that much power?
Especially against such darkness.
Now, I know this quote isn't even directly from Dostoevsky.
It isn't.
It's spoken by Prince Mishkin,
Yeah,
the main character in The Idiot.
one of his most famous characters.
So, who is this Mishkin? And why is this profound statement coming from him?
Well, Mishkin is interesting.
Okay.
He's often seen as this almost Christ-like figure, just radiating compassion and innocence.
So he enters this world that's obsessed with wealth and power
Exactly.
and status.
And he completely disrupts everything.
And like Dostoevsky, Mishkin also suffers from epilepsy.
Yes.
Which, deepens their connection.
That's another layer to it, yeah.
And to complicate things even more, Mishkin, despite all his efforts to spread beauty and love,
Right.
suffers a tragic fate, doesn't he?
He does.
Like Dostoevsky is saying, hold on, it's not that simple.
It's true. He descends into madness and, on the surface, accomplishes nothing.
It's almost like a deliberate challenge to this idea that beauty equals an easy salvation.
That's a really insightful way to put it.
So what kind of saving did Dostoevsky have in mind then?
That's the question, isn't it?
It feels like Dostoevsky is pushing us to think beyond, like, pretty sunsets.
Yeah, it's deeper than that.
To think about beauty in a more profound way.
Right. Maybe he wasn't talking about the beauty we see, but the kind that's within us.
Okay, I like that, the beauty of the human spirit.
Exactly.
But then how do we square that with Mishkin?
Hmm.
Because he fails, right?
Well, even though he ends up in madness,
Yeah.
his actions, his love, his compassion,
Okay.
they really affect the people he meets.
In what way?
They have these moments of, like, real connection, true understanding.
Like they're touched by his spirit.
Yeah, like they see a glimpse of something bigger.
So maybe that's the saving Dostoevsky meant.
It could be.
Not fixing the whole world,
Right.
but those individual transformations.
Exactly. It's about that change within the heart, a kind of awakening.
And don't forget, Dostoevsky himself went through this.
Oh, absolutely.
He turned his own suffering into art.
Right. His novels are born from that darkness, but they still inspire us.
It's like he's showing us you can find beauty even in the darkest places.
Exactly. He didn't shy away from pain, but he also showed us the possibility of meaning.
It makes me think about some of the art that's moved me the most.
Yeah.
It's not always conventionally beautiful.
I know what you mean.
It's more about the emotion, the rawness, even the ugliness sometimes.
It's that honesty that grabs you.
Yeah, like you connect with something deeply human.
And it makes you feel less alone.
Exactly.
What's amazing is how that kind of beauty, the one that comes from vulnerability,
Yeah.
it cuts through all the cynicism and apathy.
It wakes you up.
It does. It reminds us what it means to be human, both the suffering and the love.
It makes you really see the world again.
Exactly.
And the people in it.
It's like a jolt to the system.
Speaking of jolts, what about that inscription on Dostoevsky's tombstone?
Oh, that's a powerful one.
It says, "Most assuredly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much grain."
So much packed into that, right?
It's like even in death, even
Yeah.
in suffering,
Yeah.
there's potential for new life,
And something beautiful can emerge.
like that grain of wheat.
Exactly. It speaks to transformation, sacrifice, something greater coming from loss.
So maybe Dostoevsky believed that beauty isn't separate from suffering,
Ooh, I like that.
but that it exists because of it.
It's not about ignoring the hard stuff.
No, it's about finding meaning in it all,
Right. It's about seeing that beauty can be in the most unexpected places.
even in pain.
Yes. It's about embracing the whole human experience.
The good and the bad,
All of it.
and seeing the potential for change in both.
Dostoevsky definitely seemed to think so.
Remember what he said after facing death himself?
What's that?
Life is a gift. Life is happiness.
Wow.
Even after all that, he still believed in the beauty of life.
That's powerful.
It makes you wonder, though, how we hold on to that, especially
Yeah.
when the world feels so...
Dark. I think it starts by recognizing that beauty isn't passive.
Oh.
It's not something we just sit back and observe.
What do you mean?
We have to cultivate it,
Oh, interesting.
both within ourselves
I love it, Jay.
and in the world around us.
So it's not just appreciating what we see, but actually creating beauty.
Exactly. And sharing it, letting it inspire us to act.
That's a big idea.
It is, but think about it. Even small acts of kindness,
Yeah.
compassion, even creativity,
Okay.
they can have a ripple effect.
So each of us can be a source of beauty.
I believe so. We can bring light and hope into a world that often feels divided.
That's a really hopeful thought, especially coming from,
From Dostoevsky.
yeah, someone who saw so much darkness.
It speaks to that resilience of the human spirit, doesn't it?
It does.
That even in the face of suffering,
Yeah.
there's always reason to hope, always a reason to believe in the power of beauty.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It really has.
As we wrap up this exploration of Dostoevsky's philosophy,
Yeah.
what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think Dostoevsky challenges us to really question what we mean by beauty
Okay.
and how it impacts our lives. He reminds us that it's not just about aesthetics.
Right.
It's about finding meaning, even in suffering. It's about recognizing our shared humanity.
And embracing vulnerability.
Yes, and choosing to act with kindness and compassion.
And remembering that even in a bleak world,
Yeah.
beauty can transform us.
It can heal and inspire us to build a better future.
Beautifully said. So where do we go from here? How do we actually apply all this?
Well, I think Dostoevsky gives us a good starting point.
Okay.
He asks, life is a gift, life is happiness.
Huh.
What beauty will you find today?
I love that.
It doesn't have to be some huge life-altering thing, you know?
Right,
It
right.
could be something small.
Like what?
The warmth of the sun, a real connection with someone,
Yeah,
or even like a flower pushing through the sidewalk.
those little moments, yeah.
Exactly. It's about training ourselves to see that beauty.
To not take it for granted.
Exactly.
And I think what strikes me is how personal that is.
Oh, absolutely.
What moves me might not do anything for you, and vice versa.
It's about finding what resonates with your soul.
What sparks that sense of wonder?
Exactly.
You know, it's kind of amazing when you think about it.
What is?
Dostoevsky went through so much,
He did.
but he never lost sight of that basic truth,
Which is,
that life is a gift, even when it's hard.
even when it's brutal.
Yeah. He faced a firing squad
I know.
and still found a reason to celebrate life.
It's pretty incredible.
So how do we cultivate that spirit?
Well, we talked about this a bit, right? It's
Yeah.
not just about appreciating beauty. It's about,
Creating it,
yes,
sharing it.
letting it inspire us.
Exactly. It's about action.
Like Dostoevsky writing those incredible novels.
Right. Channeling his pain into something powerful.
That's a legacy.
It is. And we can all do that in our own ways.
So beauty isn't just an end in itself, it's a starting point.
I like that. A catalyst for change.
And it doesn't have to be this huge, world-changing thing.
No, not at all.
It can be small acts of kindness,
A helping hand.
gratitude for the everyday things.
All that contributes.
Those little sparks can make a difference.
They create a ripple effect.
It all comes back to Dostoevsky's quote, doesn't it?
Beauty will save the world.
Yeah. Maybe he wasn't being literal.
Maybe it was a challenge to us.
To embrace the power of beauty
And let it change us.
from the inside out.
Exactly.
And maybe through all those individual changes,
Yeah,
we can create a better world,
a brighter world.
a kinder world.
I think Dostoevsky would like that.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
Into the world of Fyodor Dostoevsky. We journeyed through some dark and heavy stuff.
We have.
But ultimately, it's a story of hope
It is. It's about the power of the human spirit.
and the transformative potential of beauty.
We hope you'll continue exploring Dostoevsky's work.
Yeah, dive into those novels
Ponder his words.
and see how his insights can shape your own understanding of beauty,
of suffering.
of the human experience.
And as you go about your day,
Remember Dostoevsky's words.
life is a gift.
Life is happiness.
Embrace the beauty around you
Cultivate it within yourself.
and share it generously with the world.
Who knows? You might just be the spark that ignites hope in someone else's heart.
Until next time.
Keep diving deep